society stands today. In the words of the late Eddie Meduza,
Sveriges lag har ju varit sån ända sen den kom att den gäller för dig och mig, men inte för dem.
The previous leader of the Social Democrats was a man named Göran Persson, Prime Minister of Sweden from 1996 to 2006. His leadership style was a highly totalitarian one, where he made himself the center of all decisions. He appointed weak members of his government dependent on him for their position as minister. The most notorious of these cases was that of Vice Prime Minister Bosse Ringholm, whose merits included advocating financial aid to communist dictatorships in the 1970s, including the Khmer Rouge of Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge are most well known for their genocide of between 1 and 2 million people. Persson also had this man serve as finance minister, a position you wouldn't expect someone who'd failed high school math to end up at. Ringholm dropped out of high school after failing not only math but English as a second language as well. In Persson's government, him failing English didn't stop him from briefly serving as Minister for Foreign Affairs, however. Judging by Persson's actions, his concept of democracy seemed to have been one where the only right you have is to agree with him. His perspective on mass media has been covered earlier in this movie. Mass media hasn't been the only target of his threats, however. In a parliamentary debate on the 14th of June 1995, a year before he was to become Prime Minister, he extended this threat to the Swedish people as well.
Comrades, I have made a terrible discovery. There are traitors among us.
It's safe to say that this threat seems to have contributed to Sweden's whitewashed image abroad. Swedes have been afraid to speak out, and people outside of Sweden have gotten a much more positive image of Sweden than Swedes have themselves. Unconfirmed sources also claim he praised Kim Jong-il's regime when he visited North Korea. According to the story that was up on Svenska Dagbladet briefly, the North Korean state reported him saying this about the dictator. He's also praised the political system of China as Prime Minister back in 1996. For me, it's incredibly striking what political stability means for economic growth when you look at the Chinese example. Today, the Social Democrat Party is headed by a woman named Mona Sahlin. As early as age 13, she was protesting against the USA as part of the Swedish FNL movement, siding with North Vietnam in that war. She is well known as a person who doesn't need reason or common sense to make a stand. Some of the issues she's fought for have been allowing foreign women to perform abortions in Sweden, defending the extremely generous right for just about anyone to come to Sweden as a so-called refugee and receive benefits, as well as standing up for gay rights. Being consistent is an alien concept for this woman, however. At the same time as she is very popular with the LGBT people, she has reached out to Muslims as well, even wearing a hijab to show her sympathy for Islam. She has also forced the Swedish church to wed homosexual couples, threatening the church with legislation if it didn't comply, legislation that in April of this year finally became a reality. She's been a frequent critic of neighboring country Denmark because of this country having more sane asylum policies. She is proven to be quite a hypocrite as well. While one of her mottos are, "It's cool to pay taxes," she's dodged quite a few of her own. Making $7,000 worth of personal purchases on a government credit card, receiving countless parking tickets yet often not paying them, bankrupting a shady company, not paying taxes for a babysitter, neglecting to pay the state TV license fee, neglecting to pay $3,000 in income taxes. Apart from this, she also smoked pot in her youth. One could go on and on about her, listing the reasons why she is not the least qualified to run a country, yet as it stands now, she is the head of the Social Democrat Party and might just become Prime Minister in 2010, reclaiming for the party what they consider their society. The conglomerate of Swedish trade unions, LO, is still today brandishing the brown shirt methods its history is full of. During the summer of 2008, when the centrist government had a bill up that would change the health insurance, LO mass-mailed flyers about the bill to neighbors of members of parliament that might vote in favor of the bill. 33,000 flyers went out, addressed to neighbor of X, where X was the politician they were the neighbors of. The flyer contained no information on who to contact about the mailing. A representative of the union told this newspaper that it might be a good idea for these neighbors to talk the matter over with the politicians they had living near them. It's a routine matter for members of the Social Democrat Party to receive directives from above on how to think and what organizations to fight. Recently a party has risen that doesn't embrace the generous asylum policies Sweden is known for, and the Social Democrats have instructed their members to attempt to smash this party. They sent out this 35-page pamphlet with instructions on how to view the Sweden Democrats, what arguments to use against them, and how to respond in certain situations. They've included a sticker of the party in question, yet the telephone number has been crossed out, perhaps scared that their members would contact this party and sympathize with them. It's amusing that they attempt to link this party to Nazism when the Social Democrats are the ones that put their own people in concentration camps, sterilized them, and had friendly relations with Nazi Germany. The Social Democrats claim ownership of the people voting for the Sweden Democrats, describing them as demographically ours. One can't but help to wonder what kind of a person would claim ownership of another human being. Perhaps a Social Democrat, sworn enemies of individual liberty. The Social Democrats are very strict when it comes to allowing their members to work with Sweden Democrats. It's simply out of the question. From this point on in the pamphlet, members are indoctrinated into what terms to use about the enemy. Xenophobic, anti-worker, anti-women. The anti-women part is motivated with the rejection of completely free abortions by the Sweden Democrats. The Social Democrats have little reason to criticize other parties for being supposedly anti-women. A former head of the trade union LO used to refer to the women in the party as F-Sim, which can be translated as C-U-N-T-Shoal in English. They sure can't think very highly of their members if they need to send out pamphlets with step-by-step instructions on how to discuss politics. Then again, the typical member of the party has about this much brains.
Sit down. Sit down. You see, it understands.
If they had any more brains than that, they would know better than to vote for the Social Democrats.